Hello and welcome to the Can I Retire Now podcast with your hosts, Nick Russell and Becky Wagoner. I'm your podcast producer, RJ Malik. Nick and Becky, as always, great to see you. And Becky, we're going to have you start off. So what is going on with this edition of Can I Retire Now podcast?
Good morning. Today, we are going to be discussing how you should select your financial advisor, like who you're going to work with. I picked mine because I married him, but I know that's not an option for everybody.
I'm already married. You can't. That's not how it works. Yeah.
I let my wife pick. That's how that works.
Oh, okay. There you go. So we know there's a lot of reasons people seek financial guidance, right? Like for retirement planning, for investment advice, for tax advice, and ideally someone could do all of those things in the same bucket. But when you're interviewing somebody that's going to take care of such a vital part of your life and your income in the future, what are some important things you should ask, right? Because I think we go in and we just meet with people and he's like, I guess they seemed nice. But there are some important questions, right, Nick? So
there are. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go over those today, I think.
So yeah, I came up with 7. I didn't want this to sound like a BuzzFeed, like here are the top 7 things you must ask every financial advisor. But
now it does.
Now it does. Yeah. Well, but I thought about it and I said, okay, well, so I've had people come into my office, like maybe a referral from another client, and they're like, hey, yeah, so-and-so told me you're amazing and we should work with you. And I'm blessed that that's how that conversation
And the
starts,
interview's
right?
I That's just it.
And then I'm like, but you should probably know like some of these things about me and my process. And yeah. So I actually give them the questions to ask.
You do?
Yeah. And then make them ask me, or I'll ask and answer them. I'm like, here's some things you should know just so that you feel even more comfortable and informed.
Oh, what a good guy. Okay.
Well, yeah, I think look, the term financial advisor is used by, I don't know, about 300,000 or 400,000 people across the U.S. And not every one of them is licensed the same. Not every one of them works the same. Not every one of them has the same kind of philosophy. So I think it's important to ask some of this stuff. So I am prepared to rattle off. I have my notes. I wrote them down so I wouldn't miss any of them.
Who's prepared today?
Oh no. I'm packing heat today. So here we go. Do you want me to just jump right in?
How exciting for everyone. Okay. So
now
Nick,
you sit down.
7 questions.
Yeah.
So I'm meeting you for the first time and I'm like, I'd like to retire one day, Nick.
Yes.
Can you help me? That's not one of the questions, but all right. So what is the first thing I should ask?
First, most important thing, and these are all disclosure in my opinion.
Okay.
Are you a fiduciary?
Fiduciary.
So,
and that means
if you're a fiduciary or if a financial advisor is a fiduciary, it means they are legally obligated to the advice that they give. Now, I to my knowledge, based on what I've been told through industry statistics, only about 1 in 10 financial advisors are actually fiduciaries.
Stop.
Yeah. So
and
I'm a fiduciary.
Okay.
You're still allowed to give advice, but it's kind of the difference between a tax consultant and a CPA. If you have your taxes done by a tax consultant, you get audited. Good luck. You just got audited, Becky. CPA, you do your taxes through CPA. CPA has to be there to justify their support and advice. Yeah.
Oh, so it's like an additional, now you're legally bound. Okay. So they have more skin in the game, I guess.
So yeah, you would think like every financial advisor is going to give the advice that is best for you, the client, and not for themselves. But not everybody's built that way, right? You think that they'll be moral and give great advice. Fiduciaries are legally up. Now, it doesn't mean fiduciaries aren't going to, could be some goofball either.
Some scummy people, but at
least you get a start.
Bad. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's important. And I've told everybody I've ever met with, if you elect to work with someone else other than me, please let it be a fiduciary.
Okay.
I think that's important. So that's number 1.
Fiduciary.
Nice. All right. Number 2, a little more simple. What services do you offer? Like, what do you actually do here? Because
this seems like a good basic level question. Okay.
Yeah. And because I think people come in with preconceived notion, hey, I'm coming in here because I need my 401k managed.
Yeah.
And they go, okay. So that what they're saying is you give investment advice, but do you give
Mhm.
advice? Do you actually manage the money? Do you take it
Oh,
from me and actually press all the buttons? Do you do anything more? Are you
what about taxes?
what about taxes? What about insurance? What about
Okay.
my child's education planning? Like, are these services that you provide? Yeah.
This seems really basic and not one I would have thought of. I mean, I would think that they'd offer that information, but maybe not. Maybe they're just like,
Yeah. Well,
okay,
I mean, you can look on someone's website, you can kind of get a feel, but I think if you're sitting across the table for someone to say, hey, can you kind of walk me through the types of services that you offer? You're going to
good.
hear it in their own voice, and they're going to
Yeah.
tell you. I mean,
Okay.
it's nice. So what services do you offer?
Good question. Number 3 question.
Kind of vibing off of that, what's your investment philosophy?
Ooh,
So
deep
now this,
question.
yeah, so this is more focused on the investment end of the, say, financial planning spectrum,
Hmm.
but you want to hear what someone has to say, because what if they come in and um, they don't, they think you just invest everybody's money the same, but now
Hmm.
maybe this person's 80 years old and worried about leaving a legacy and just maintaining income, or they're 50 and they're looking to retire in 5 years, or
Hmm.
they're 50 and they're looking to retire in 15 years. Each one of those people have very different demands from an investment strategy.
Yeah. Well,
So,
okay.
yeah, which seems obvious to you, right? But there
Well,
are,
I'm just saying, so how does that tie to that person's philosophy? Like, what would be an answer someone would give to that?
so I mean, my philosophy that
Hmm.
I could share with you from an investment perspective
Yeah.
is I think about everybody's planning with the end in mind. So if let's
Okay.
say you tell me you want to retire at 65, and I figure out how much money do you need to earn on your
Hmm.
investments to get to that point in time with the right amount
Hmm.
of money. So how much money do you need, and back it up to today and say, okay, over the next 10 or 15 years, you need to earn 7% on average, considering how much you can save every month or every year.
Okay.
So for me, I then take that number that we need to earn, which you're never going to earn 7% every year. You're going
Yeah.
to earn plus 20, minus
Okay.
10, all that. What's the least amount of risk that I can take from an investment strategy to predictably earn that rate of return?
Okay. So your philosophy is start with the end in mind, play it, make sure we get there using all the right things. So someone else might have a philosophy, if you will, like make as much money as possible or
Bingo.
save as much taxes or whatever. Okay.
So
All right.
make
So,
as much money as possible is the one that I run into the most. Like when I see clients' accounts and they're like, well, this is what my last guy was doing. And I'm like, oh, you consider yourself pretty moderate. Wow, this is 98% stock. He goes, yeah, we've
oh,
done well the last couple of years. I go, yeah, of course you did. The market's been good. You're all in stock, but you're an
hmm,
aggressive investor at this point. If you want to be moderate, we have to scale that back.
You also have to get to know your client as far as what their
Absolutely. Yeah.
tolerance is, because they may say one thing but act a different way when the sky
hmm,
Oh
is
yeah.
falling.
Yeah. And I do think advice for advisors, if you have an investment philosophy, it should be malleable to people in different situations, right? You
that
should
makes
be
sense.
able to put yourself in their shoes and say, hey, you're a 25-year-old grandchild of a client of mine. Let's grip it and rip it. You should be aggressive, but be able to explain to them why
Hmm.
and why it's good for them and educate them. And then that same advisor should be able to help grandma or grandpa of that person with their needs that are different.
Yeah.
Maybe using the same types of products, but different proportions and different allocations.
You also need to be ready to adjust because things happen, and I'll
Oh yeah,
use my
yeah.
personal experience. My mother-in-law is, in a facility. My mother is 87, and we have to watch her like a hawk, and we're not sure exactly what we're going to do because she adamantly does not want to go into a facility, but there could become a certain point in time where she can't take care of herself.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to you sort of have to then contact your financial advisor and say, here's what's going on in my life.
And you should, by the way.
What are my options?
You should always include them in on stuff like that so that they're aware. If I don't want someone moving without letting me know. I don't want them going through a personal situation like that. I know it's stressful, but that's what we're here for. So yeah, I think that actually rolls right into my next kind of question is how are you going to communicate with me? So
Ooh,
yeah,
good question.
because I do something that I know a lot of advisors don't do. I see my clients regularly throughout the year. Now, I know that sounds crazy, and you would think all advisors do that. A lot of times, advisors take their top chunk of clients and they see them like once a year for an annual review. And then everybody else is kind of like, yeah, just call me if you need anything. Or if something comes up and the advisor wants to talk to them about something, they call and say, hey, when are you available? I need to talk to you about a few things.
I remember growing up, the financial advisor came to my house once a year. It's like the big day.
That was it.
Yeah, met with my parents.
Nick, isn't it also incumbent on the client to then reach out to you? Because I can tell you I am very bad about that. I see the financial advisor. We talk to him twice a year, and that's on me.
And that's pretty good, by the way. I mean, according to like statistically what happens across the industry, you probably talk to your advisor more than 95% of people that use an advisor. Yeah.
You got a good one, RJ.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, at least somebody who has a service model that involves dedicating the time to that. Now, I understand most advisors don't do that because as they're building a practice and they want to grow and work with more people and help more people, there's only so much time, right, in someone's calendar. And so, you have to decide if I want to help more people and grow my practice, then I have to do something. You have to hire staff to take some of this stuff off your plate. You have to be a little more, maybe rigid about your calendar. But I'm like the dentist. I schedule people's meeting. Yeah, here's your 6 month and your 1 year. Like they're leaving my office. They have an appointment with me from a year from now, and they laugh, but it's in the calendar. It's happening.
So how are you going to communicate with me? I mean, there's lots of options, right? But you just need to know what to expect, right? Is this guy going to send me an annual statement? Is this, am I going to get a phone call once a year? Or what?
Yeah, phone call, web call, face to face. And that again is something doesn't have to, it just has to work for both of you.
It doesn't need to be a particular answer, just one that works for you.
Correct.
Okay.
There is no right answer because there are plenty of people that are like, yeah, I don't want to meet with you twice a year. I'm like, okay, sure. I mean, but can I call you and check in and make sure everything's okay and all that? But yeah, you just want to make sure that that you guys vibe, that you're trying to do the same thing. We're on 5. This is 5.
All right, lay it on me.
Who is your typical client? Who do you normally work with?
Yeah. Do you have a type? Okay.
Do you have a type? Brunette, 5'4" or shorter. Occasionally wears glasses.
All right. No.
Yeah. So, but it's a really good question because you kind of nailed it right there. Do you only work with certain kinds of people? I know advisors that I have a buddy up in Ohio who he only works with Ohio public employees. He's like an expert on their pension and benefits, and that's literally who he works with. And then like friends and families of.
So he's a good fit for a particular type of person.
Yeah. If I was in Ohio and I was a public employee, I would go to him and him only. That's what he does. Me, I've kind of, you've met a lot of my clients over time. I kind of have different pockets of clients, if you will.
Yeah, you have like your top 3 types. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I work well with people that are a little more expressive in personality, just because that's kind of me. But I work with a lot of people that are, hospitality, Disney, Universal. They're all here in Orlando. I'm one of the few people that love working with engineers. So I have a lot of clients from Siemens and Lockheed Martin, because a lot of advisors aren't as mathy as you think. They're more expressive and less mathy. And I really, in my core, connect
love math. We know. We love math. I know.
I connect with engineers. But then I also have a big chunk of my practice that is older, widowed, divorced, single women.
Let's just say it. Yeah.
Single women. And I don't know how that happened over time, but they're a very underserviced part of the society, I think. And I've always connected really well with them. And I think, like, as we talk about who do you normally work with, I now have experience working with all these different scenarios and all of the different things that come to play with it. And for them, I am a good personality fit. And I've heard from some women that I work with that, they'll sit with an advisor and they used to only talk to the husband, and then the husband passed away and now they wanted to be friends. And it's like, yeah, no, you didn't care about me when my husband was alive, but now that he passed, and it felt very disingenuous. So, just find somebody that, again, fits
personality wise, but also if there's an advisor out there that has an expertise for the industry you're coming from or whatever scenario, find them.
Yeah,
right?
because it's so much easier. Like I know the Lockheed Martin benefits and the Disney benefits like the back of my hand. I can have someone call me up cold today and say, "Hey, I'm Becky's friend. I work at Disney." And I go, "I know what your 401k is. I know what the match is. I know what the options are. I know what I don't offer the health insurance or disability or life, but I know all those benefits because I help all my clients with it." And it makes it easier for them.
That's a good question.
So that was number 5.
All right.
Number 6. Can you provide any references? I don't get asked this very often, but I think it's a fair question. And I never mind when I get asked. But hey, can you refer me to someone who currently uses you so I can ask them a few questions? Now, kind of a delicate subject because
but we ask it of like our babysitters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big deal. This is our investments. We should ask it,
So like a doctor, my clients have privilege. Anything they say to me stays inside this room. Doesn't go. I don't care if I work with their brother, their mother, their sister. No one gets to know. So when someone asks for a referral or somebody that I work with, I will then reach out to a few of my clients and say, "Hey,
and have them.
I'm meeting with somebody." If they're a referral from another client, they're not asking because they've already done the work. But let's say it's someone cold off the street. I'll say, "Hey, someone I'm meeting with," and they ask if they could talk to someone I've worked with. And I usually try to grab clients that are kind of in a similar state of life as them and, give them like 2 options and say, "Would you mind if I gave them your name and number?" And then,
go from there.
And they call. I will say,
question.
I think it's a great question. I will say skeptic, I'm a little like, I'm not going to refer you to someone who's not happy with me.
No, but I mean,
right?
But you can at least ask. I mean,
I think it's important to ask. And I think it's great to see the person's response. Most of these questions are really to see how the advisor responds to it. If they get really like, "Why are you asking me this? Oh, you don't want to work with that person." Like your advisor should be as open with you as they're expecting you to be with them. It's a 2-way street. It's like a marriage, babe.
And you can pick up on if they do recommend someone, you can pick up on how happy they actually are as they're, talking about the financial advisor. So I think it's a good thing.
Quick aside, I had random, a person that wanted to be a client. I interviewed, I said, "Hey, let me give you these 2 people to talk to." Later, that person became a client. Later, they met the person at an event we did face to face, and now they're friends. They hang out all the time. They became really good friends. And I'm like, all right, I'm like a matchmaker now. All right. So question 7, I saved the best one for last. So I wouldn't necessarily ask these in this order, by the way. But 7, I think it's the number 1 question that doesn't get asked in the first meeting they meet with me.
All right.
How do you get paid? How do you get compensated? How do you get paid? And there are a million different answers. But boy, and you've watched me interact with people, babe, over the years, contractors. I ask, I'm like, "Do you work for this company? Do you own this company?" Like, I want to know. I want to know that if you work on commission.
What's your motivation?
What's your motivation? So I'll go over a couple real quick different options that you may hear. I'm actually thinking we may do a full episode on how financial advisors get paid, because I think it'd be fun to like really get into that. Which probably scares all financial advisors that might be listening to this. But I think it's great to pull back the curtain and let you know. So a lot of advisors work on commission, means they get money from an investment company when they recommend a certain product to you. Or if you're buying or selling investments, it may actually come out of your investment money, a commission to them.
Okay.
Most places that we see now work on what we call an asset or fee-based model, meaning they charge some kind of percentage based on the amount of money they manage for you. Those fees come out of your investment accounts automatically, monthly or quarterly normally. And those fees, range, I've seen them as low as say 0.75 rarely, but industry average, I think is like 1.7 now. So you usually see something in that 1.25 to 1.5 range to do that. And then there's advisors that charge a flat fee for service. Flat
like an annual.
Has become a really, really popular model because it's transparent. You write a check, I get the check, you know that what you're paying for, and then you get kind of the breadth of services. Yeah.
Okay. So different ways they get paid, but it's important to know what may be motivating your advisor.
Like if someone is charging you a flat fee for service, they're just going to advise you. They're going to advise you whether you take their advice or not, whether they, whether they're advising you on insurance or investments or whatever. So that might be a good model for you. Or a fee-based, they're going to make more money as you make more money, as your account balances go up. So those are my top 7 questions you need to ask every financial advisor.
I think those are all good. Yeah. I mean, and so that makes sense. So my follow-up question to these is, what would be a red flag for you as if I'm meeting advisor? Like, is there something besides just like, oh, I get the icks, you know what I mean? Like, because I met a few finance guys now in my time, and some of them are a little slimy, right? Like, so are there other red flags we should watch out for besides just like general vibes?
So I honestly think the general vibes thing is more important than people realize.
Okay.
Yeah. What you called it, the ick? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you're not comfortable in the room with that person, you're
Don't
not
give
in
them
the
your
right
money.
room.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about your entire financial future that you're trusting somebody with. Let's make sure, you feel comfortable with them.
All right.
If I gave you the ick on our first couple of dates, would you have married me? No.
No, much less given, you control of all my money.
Yeah.
So
I think that's actually a very reasonable one. Let's not dismiss that.
Okay.
I think kind of going off some of the questions I would normally ask, if someone's iffy about answering any of those, specifically like how they get paid, if they're
like, don't worry about it, it takes care of itself.
Yeah. No, it works out in the wash, or hey, we're talking about this product. What are the costs and taxes associated with this? And they don't seem informed about it, like they literally don't know the answer, or they're not willing to just disclose it, write it in an email to you, something.
Put it in writing. Oh.
Yeah. That's a big, because some of these products are pretty complex. So I'll go over something with a client, and I'm the kind of person, I'm always going to recommend what's best, not necessarily what's the simple solution. So sometimes I'm meeting with a client, I go, look, there's these 2 things we need to use. Let me get deep dive into each of them. And by the end of the meeting, they're like glazed over, and they're like, look, we trust you, Nick. We love you. I don't know.
I relate.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a quick bullet point summary in an email so that like a week from now, if you're going, wait, what did he say? How that
so
thing
much.
works?
Yes. Yeah. I get it.
You have like a reference point. So I think that's important. I think a big one that people aren't aware of is that we have a permanent record as advisors. I know. It's just like school.
Just like school, it goes on your permanent record. Yeah. Okay, so how does one access this?
Yeah, so it's called a U4, like the letter U -4. And one of our regulatory agencies, FINRA, FINRA, if you go to finra.org, I think it's org. On their website is something called broker check. Broker check, like short for stockbroker. broker check. Anybody who's securities licensed, you can search up their name and get both their personal and professional history.
When you say personal, not like you're talking about like arrest records or like,
Yeah.
oh,
Employment history. So when I
What?
so for the last 10 years, so when I first started my first 10 years in the industry, you would be able to see that I delivered pizzas for Papa John's when I worked in college.
stop it.
And I worked at Kmart, like back, I don't know if Kmart's still a thing.
How
now.
did they know that?
I have to disclose it.
Oh,
I had to fill it out every year until eventually those 10 years like rolled off. And I was like,
oh, okay.
I'm
Because
so
you need a
proud of
10-year
my-
history. Okay.
yeah, I'm so proud of my Papa John's time, but it doesn't need to
good
be
job.
on. Yeah, I'm 43. People don't need to know that I delivered pizzas when I was in college.
Mhm.
But then it'll go through arrest history. If we file bankruptcy or have default on some kind of debt personally, it shows up. Because you think about it, if I'm gonna trust you with my money, but you filed bankruptcy personally 3 times,
You got to evaluate whether that's a good fit. Yeah.
you might appear like a great person, but that's maybe you're not the best with money. And then there's obviously the professional history. Every broker dealer I've associated with, licenses, client complaints. So that's a big one. Now I will put this out there. Whether a complaint is considered justified or not, and that's the term they use. So whether, because there are people that complain and go, I
About
lost money
everything.
during 2008. Yeah, we all did. And they could have fully been disclosed everything and fully understood, but just aren't happy. That would show up on someone's record. Even if it says not justified, it would show like the client's written complaint. But more important, I think, is when there's a complaint or a settlement or something that says, and it literally will show the client's verbiage and then the advisor's response. So you can see like client complained that advisor made an inappropriate recommendation, and then you could see like settled for $250,000. That means the advisor did something wrong, right? Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, so it goes back your whole history or just 10 years?
10 years for work history, employment history, but
okay.
my full record. I've been in the business 20 years, 20 years worth of everything I've ever done.
So even if you were crazy back when, it shows up. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had, you want to hear a little side note? Here, I don't know if you have a fun fact today, but here's a fun story.
Sure.
I had an advisor reach out to me and asked like, hey, I'm thinking about retiring in the next 5 years. I'd like to partner up with you, which is very common, right? Like maybe join Sunrise, work here for a couple of years, and then retire. And I would then service the clients afterwards or somebody within my organization. And so, we're talking on the phone. The guy seems super nice, super outgoing, right? Nothing crazy. And so I grab his name and we get off the phone and we schedule some time to talk, the following week. And the first thing I did was pull up broker check on FINRA. I'm like, all right, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Guy just got arrested for his second DUI, in which he hit a tree, kept driving while the police followed him all the way home. And then he had a physical altercation with the police officer lady. So
he's making questionable choices.
in life. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so seemed really reasonable on the phone, seemed really nice, seemed he had a good business. He'd been in the business for a long time.
But also needed an exit plan here.
Yeah. He was looking for something that would benefit him, not something that would benefit the clients or be a good relationship. And so then I just Googled his name and I got to see the mugshot and the write-up about it in the paper. So I tell people my broker check is boring, right? It doesn't, thank God, right?
Thank goodness. I've never broker checked you. I probably should have done that before we got married.
They should have like marriage check or something. Do somebody's dating check, someone's history.
Yeah.
No, I would never have gotten married. No. No.
I've made some questionable dating decisions on my way to find Becky, so I don't want the history of that. But I think it's important. So if you have an advisor you're working with, look it up, and not just if they have a complaint, it doesn't make them a bad person, right? It just means that there was a miscommunication maybe with somebody, but you can ask them about it because now you're informed. Now you know. Or especially if you're shopping for an advisor right now. Yeah. Yeah. I would ask these 7 questions. I would check on broker check, make sure they have a clean record. If you're not getting referred to somebody from somebody you know, this kind of gives you some ammo.
All
So,
right.
yeah.
So that's how we find a financial advisor and ask them questions.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
So I have your fun fact.
You do
How
have a
many-
fun fact. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
How many adult Americans actually work with the financial advisor? What would you say percentage-wise?
okay. And I hate doing this. Every time you ask a fun fact question, I always feel like I have to dive into it a little deeper.
Yeah. What if I just hummed the Jeopardy music and you thought to yourself? No,
Okay,
I'm
I'll
kidding.
just-
I'm kidding.
because financial advisor is such a loose term. Like it could be an insurance agent, it could be this, it could be that. So it's probably higher than I think.
Oh,
Yeah, because not
Give a
everybody's
guess.
like a comprehensively licensed financial advisor like I am. Like
not a
you can use-
fiduciary. If
not
you
a
will.
fiduciary, which you learned.
Okay. All right.
So what's your guess, Nick?
Yeah.
20%.
20? I was going to say 40, 45.
All right. The answer is in the middle of it. It's
Oh.
only about a third, like 35%. So according to bankrate.com, actually work with a financial advisor and
somebody.
seek advice from them. So
Okay.
if they're not getting advice from a financial advisor, what are the other sources, you ask? Obviously,
ooh,
follow-up
ooh, ooh.
question.
Oh, can I guess? Or are you just
Yeah.
going to give them
Yeah, go for it.
CPA? An accountant?
No.
Really?
A friend.
Oh, God. A
Number
coworker?
one is friends and family
Oh, God.
at 47%. Number two is a financial advisor or expert, is how they categorize it at 35%. And number three, speaking to the age and time we live in, is social media
Social media, TikTok.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. Really?
at 30%.
Are you kidding?
So almost as many people get financial advice from social media, which by the way, and this is literally on YouTube.
Social
right?
media. So, I
Right.
mean, yeah,
But let me give you a little thing.
not personalized. Yeah.
It's not personalized. And is the person even a financial advisor? The
Did
person
we
giving
ask
you-
if they're a fiduciary yet? No.
Oh,
Okay.
I wouldn't even have gone that far. I would say if this is some person that's just saying, hey, this is what everybody should do, how do they even
Yeah.
know? You know nothing about them. Do they
Social
show
media.
up on broker check?
Yeah. Social media ranks above financial experts and banks and financial institutions, by the way.
Oh my God.
And the number one social media source is Facebook.
It's Facebook.
There you go. But in a twist,
Oh,
what age group? I know this financial facts just going
this was
down
more
the
than
street. We're just here. But in a twist, what generation would you say? Like we're all the generations, baby boomers, X, millennial, who's the top seeking generation to get financial advice?
the youngins. I bet you it's the young people on
It's
TikTok.
Gen
Yeah.
Z.
Gen Z. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
So, do you know why,
Me neither.
Becky? I have
No.
I have a thought. This just, we hadn't talked about this before.
Okay.
But think about when our parents were growing up or
Mhm.
in their 20s, 30s, like starting their families.
Mhm.
We've talked about similar kind of ideas. You could have a single family income and live
Mm-hmm.
comfortably, right? And then by the time we got together, it's like really rare to have a single family income. Usually both spouses work, right? And to get some, whether that's cost of homes, inflation, all that kind of stuff. Imagine now being 25 years old and wanting to buy a house.
Oh, it's like impossible.
So how many times do you hear the word gig, like side gig or a little hustle? They're trying to make money from places other than just their normal job. So now they're having 2 or 3 jobs, and social media like glorifies that. But I mean, and this is, we should be able to afford a normal lifestyle. Now, not everybody should be able to afford a home. I'm okay with that. I think there's differing opinions on all of that.
Okay.
But if someone at a reasonable income at a young age doesn't even have an option of buying a home like it is now, that's a really scary thing. So I think
So you would
people, they're
reach
seeking
out.
out help and advice to try to get better. Now, I will warn you, a lot of the advice that I've seen online, like in social media reels and kind of quick hitting stuff, is usually like, how do I get rich quick? Because that's what's sexy and that's what sells. And
That's what they need, money.
they need money and they want it now. And that's not how this works, sadly.
All right.
You know, planning and investing is I told Becky the other day, I want to make new t-shirts where boring is the new fun. Like orange is the new black, but boring is the new fun. Because investing and building your wealth and these are long, drawn, just boring processes, but they work.
Right.
So as long as you're okay without getting distracted by like shiny objects, you could be successful. So pay attention to who you're getting your advice from.
Yeah, yeah. And now we know if you go to meet with them, meet with a couple people and ask the right questions and make sure you don't get the ick factor. Yeah.
Yeah, no ick.
So,
Okay.
no ick.
That's the important thing. No ick. All right. Contact information.
Contact information. Best place is the website, sunrisewealthadvisors.com. And like all of those other people, you can find us on social media. After you just said, don't get your information from social media. But ours, we try to curate really nice, simple, easy to read articles.
Ours is the best.
Yeah, ours is so much better than everybody else's.
It's contact information. It's not, you
Yeah.
know, okay.
Yeah. Just check us out. Yeah.
But check us out on X, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. My staff here, my marketing expert, has visions of me doing like a couple times a week reel on either YouTube or Instagram, just to share kind of passing thoughts with things that are in the news. So yeah, who knows? It's happening. But thank you for listening to this on your social media and podcast platforms.
All right. Very good. Thank you. And looking forward to your next podcast. And thank you for listening to today's Can I Retire Now podcast. Until next time, for Nick and Becky, I'm RJ Malik.